Gary, great to speak to you. Thanks for coming on. You said after that Ghana draw that you were impressed with England's performance. What was it that pleased you about it?
Did I say impressed?
Well, how did you? What did you think the positives were from it?
I think what I said was that if you could look at the sort of two performances, Croatia. I mean, look, I just heard the word euphoria described about the Croatia performance. I wasn't euphoric after the Croatia performance. There were a lot of things in there that would worry me from a point of view, particularly defensively, because we're conceding goals. After the Ghana performance, I thought there was a lot more order, a lot more control, and there were parts of that Ghana performance I liked. And if you could merge the two together, the Croatia and the Ghana performance, you might get some form of what would be overall sort of what would be balancing sort of what we're doing. So, look, I didn't get hugely sort of what would be excited after the Croatia game, and I don't get actually that down after the Ghana game. Anybody that's watched football or anybody that's played football at any level will know that if you're playing against a physically strong team who are well organised, and Carlos Queiroz was our coach at United for 2 or 3 years, there aren't many better at organising a team defensively than him. Messi, Henry, and Ronaldinho, I think it was, of Barcelona in 2008. Manchester United kept a clean sheet against them for 180 minutes because he orchestrated a performance. That is what he does. He's a brilliant defensive coach. So when Thomas Tuchel after the match said that he wasn't surprised by the outcome of the game, I think he knew it was going to be really tough. And Ghana was so well organised, so physically strong, that I've played in games like that for Manchester United and for England in tournaments where we've just failed to break them down. We've had so much possession. We've tried to be patient. You've tried not to sort of panic, and it just hasn't worked. And then probably another thing to add to that is that we knew before the tournament that Thomas Tuchel had selected a profile of his squad that was quick runners on the outside that ran past Harry Kane, and that maybe players that played in pockets and were a little bit more creative, like Foden and Gibbs-White and Palmer, they were being left behind, probably because of form, but also just because of their profile not fitting what Thomas Tuchel wanted. So I don't think it was a huge surprise, the game against Ghana, and I don't get carried away by the fact that I wouldn't get too down with it that we've drawn that game 0-0. I think that I think we'll do a good job against Panama, and it will all come down to how we get our balance right in the knockout games.
Like you say there, Gary, with Panama frustrating Croatia and Ghana in their group matches so far, just one goal in both those games. Do you think England would have the same issue breaking down a side like Panama as well?
Look, when you play against these teams that do this, and all the top teams have to do this, Manchester City under Pep Guardiola have spent probably 90% of their games in the last 10 years camped in on the edge of the opposition box, sort of attacking the opposition box where all the defenders are all in a very concentrated space. At Manchester United, when we were playing, when teams came back to Old Trafford and they sat deep, it's really difficult to break down teams sometimes. And what I think England will do is learn from that game against Ghana the other day, that maybe putting more crosses in the box, getting more bodies in the box earlier in the game. And that's not saying throw the kitchen sink at it from minute 5, but that's probably just maybe being a little bit more expressive, taking a few more risks with bodies in the box. Make sure our set pieces are better. I thought our set pieces actually against Ghana were the most disappointing thing. I'd have expected us, with Declan Rice on free kicks and corners and the way in which we attack the ball, I would have expected us to get something from a corner kick or a free kick. So, yeah, there are things that I think we can do against Panama that will basically help us more than it did against Ghana. And maybe Ghana was a bit of a dress rehearsal for certain games that we're going to face moving forwards.
Is there an argument, Gary, to say that England could fare better against better teams who maybe attack and come at them a bit more?
Yeah. Oh, I think when Croatia started high pressing us in the first 5-10 minutes, I suspect that at that point Thomas Tuchel and his coaching staff were rubbing their hands, because when you go punch for punch against a team, I think we're quite good at that. We can take anybody on. You saw the electricity in our counter attacks. You saw the way in which we flooded forward from deep positions. So for me, the Croatia game was perfect. A team that maybe haven't got the physicality and organisational skills of Ghana, but they came out a little bit, Croatia, thinking that they would take us on, like you say, punch for punch. And I thought we were just better than Croatia. But after the Croatia game, I did say that there were little things in that performance that would worry me. I know it was a great game to watch, and for the neutral, it was exciting. But as a coach, in a dressing room, having been in a dressing room, the coaches might have liked parts of the Ghana game a lot better than the Croatia game. If you remember Anthony Barry's interview at halftime against Croatia, he was angry. He wasn't very happy with how it had gone at all. And I was a little bit worried about how vulnerable we were. So let's not sort of rewrite history and think that everything was perfect against Croatia. It wasn't. What we've got to do is get the balance of the electricity that we had against Croatia in those 20-minute periods, and then get that defensive sort of what would be organisation and better control that we had against Ghana.
Your Sky colleague Jamie Carragher, Gary, has written that the Ghana draw shows why England could regret leaving someone like Cole Palmer at home. Is he the sort of player that England maybe could do with right now in terms of maybe unlocking that defence that's being stubborn, or providing that bit of magic that they might need at times?
We touched on it after the game the other night. We said this will be the beginning of the we should have brought Cole Palmer conversation. Thomas Tuchel has set himself up, and he knows this, he's experienced enough, that if England don't succeed in this tournament and they fall short in terms of creativity in moments against big teams, he's going to obviously be criticised for leaving the players at home that he did, the likes of Gibbs White and Cole Palmer. Not so much Phil Foden. I think people were pretty unified that he shouldn't come because of the form of the season. But the other two, I think there was debates whether we should take them in a 26-man squad. I do think that maybe Cole Palmer, Morgan Gibbs-White in a 26-man squad, that you should probably have them there. But he was very definite about what he wanted. He wanted a certain profile of player. And I'm not surprised that conversation has begun after Ghana, that Cole Palmer should be here, because he would have been able to open up and unlock that Ghana defence. It's a bit too early for that right now. But yeah, it's something that's going to come back, and Thomas Tuchel's going to have to face that criticism and that scrutiny if obviously England don't progress in the tournament and fail to score in certain matches.
The fitness of Declan Rice is also being assessed, Gary. He's played an obscene amount of games, in his own words. Would you rest him against Panama?
Well, look, after the first game, when he was substituted, when we were only 1 goal up, we were 3-2 up against Croatia, and he came off after 60-odd minutes, and Thomas Tuchel brought him off. I was worried then, and I said, to be fair, pretty quickly after that game, Declan Rice doesn't come off. Steven Gerrard doesn't come off for Liverpool. Roy Keane doesn't come off for Manchester United. Patrick Vieira doesn't come off for Arsenal. When you're 3-2 up in the first game of a World Cup, they only come off if there is a problem. So I never bought into this. It was, we're managing his minutes, we're looking after him. I think Declan Rice has got a little bit of discomfort there. From my experience of being a player and knowing that these players are the ever-presents, they're the constants, they're the ones that everybody looks up to. Sorry, someone's knocking at my door or wanted to come in and clean my room, so I'm sorry. But generally, I was worried after that first game. I'm equally as worried now because, to be fair, Declan Rice, probably Pickford and Kane are the three that we can't really replace like for like. The rest of the squad, I think there isn't that big a dip in quality if they're injured. But Declan Rice is a concern for me because he's so important to us.
Yeah, if anyone does come in, Gary, just give us a thumbs up. Maybe ask them if they'd make any changes to that starting 11.
Do you want me to go and answer the door? Have you got a second? Just 1 second. I'll be back.
Yeah. I wonder who it is. Room service.
Thank you.
Let's see who it is.
I've just told them to come back in 10 minutes. We're fine. We're good to go again.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, Gary. In terms of the starting 11 from Tuesday then, anyone else you'd like to see start this time around this weekend?
So during the game against Ghana, obviously, I don't want to pile on to Anthony Gordon because I think he's a really good player, and I think that, to be fair, he's had 2 difficult games. I didn't think that Marcus Rashford should come on that left-hand side. I actually thought it should be Morgan Rogers. I just thought that Morgan Rogers, we're talking about this Morgan Rogers or Jude Bellingham debate about who plays there. Well, Jude Bellingham's going to play number 10. I actually like the idea of Morgan Rogers coming off that left-hand side. I think he's just got a little bit more, and I don't mind Eze there either, but I prefer Rogers. I think he's got a little bit more legs in him. But I think someone who maybe can just sort of connect on that left-hand side a little bit better for us, someone who's got a little bit more game intelligence. I think, Rashford and Gordon are explosive. They're the players that, really, if you're counter-attacking, you'd want them on the pitch. But if Panama are going to be very difficult to break down, you're going to need players with a little bit more invention, a little bit more subtlety in the game. I think that's Rodgers or Eze on that left-hand side. I don't think it's a Gordon or Rashford argument for me on that left-hand side. Now, if we were playing France or if we were playing Spain, I'd say Gordon or Rashford. But just because we're playing Panama, I would like to see Rodgers off the left-hand side a little bit. I don't think it has to be that he plays in the centre with or Bellingham. I think we can move him to the left. So I would like to see a little bit of a change there. I think we probably, in certain games, I like Jed Spence a lot. I've got a lot of time for him. I can see that he sort of works hard, but I think probably Nico O'Reilly will probably come back in. So I'd like to see Nico O'Reilly and Morgan Rodgers off that left-hand side. The rest of the team, I'm pretty comfortable leaving it as it is. I don't think you should throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we've not been able to break Ghana down.
It's a fair point. And also, Gary, just before we finish, a behind closed doors session today for Tuchel and the team. What do you think they'll be doing? What sort of thing will they be going through?
I think there'll be patterns of play. Combinations, working on set pieces, working on different routines. If you think about how many set pieces England are going to get in games, and let's say it's going to be 15 or 20, a little bit more. I mean, I actually thought we worked a really good one the other night, and I thought Elliot Anderson's header at the back post, I thought he should have done a lot better with that. That was a really good opportunity. But I just think working on set pieces, working through 4 or 5 different sort of treatments of corners and set pieces, wide free kicks, that would be something that they'll be doing, I'm sure, if they've obviously worked on it before the tournament. And maybe just working on, I would say, probably phases of play where they're looking at sort of the combinations in wide areas, how they get those areas, how they get into those areas to get deliveries into the box. And then importantly, how do we get 2 things? How do we get bodies in the box whilst not exposing ourselves to the counter-attack? I would say that's where probably the session would be around today. Deep defences, Ghana, Panama may face it again in the last 32 or last 16. Set pieces are going to be really important. That unlocks the door for us. But how do we get into wide areas when the team's so compact and narrow that we're playing against? How do we get round them and how do we put balls into the box and get sort of what will be good runs in there and fill the box? So for me, they would be the things that I thought we should have maybe done a little bit better against Ghana that we didn't.